Hello, and welcome to the Simple as That dungeon guide for Windrunner Spire. Simple as That is a dungeon guide series which provides an overview of mobs and their different abilities, boss explanations, and role responsibilities, whether you are a DPS, healer, tank, or any shared responsibilities such as healers and DPS. It is not, however, a route guide or raw gameplay footage, which will be found elsewhere on the channel as the season progresses. Windrunner Spire is a 3-section dungeon that breaks off after the Promenade. You can head towards Emberdawn in Vareesa's Repose, or towards the Derelict Duo in Sylvanus Quarters. After defeating both of those bosses, you head into the Windrunner Vault, where you take on Commander Kroluk, and finally, the Restless Heart. The Restless Steward is a high-danger mob that casts Soul Torment. This is a magic dispel, so be aware, healers, as having several of these in a pull can lead to some nasty damage. Restless Stewards will also cast Spirit Bolt, which is a simple interrupt or CC requirement. The Dutiful Groundskeeper is a low-danger mob which only uses sheer armor. Every stack of this on your tank is a 1% armor loss, so be mindful when you are pulling several of these. The Spellguard Magus, of which there are only 2 in this dungeon, is a medium-danger mob that casts Arcane Salvo. This is pulsing AoE damage and a light heal check for the healer to heal through. It also casts Spellguard Protection tanks, so be aware to kite all mobs outside of this bubble, which gives a damage reduction to other enemies while they're standing within it. The Territorial Dragonhawk is a high-danger mob which casts Fire Spit. This needs to be immediately CC'd. Otherwise, it will lead to heavy damage and, when overlapped, will instantaneously kill someone if you're not careful. Additionally, Territorial Dragonhawks will cast Bolstering Flames. This applies a shield to them and increases their haste while they are continuing to cast Fire Spit. Make sure your DPS and tanks break this shield quickly and prepare to CC the Fire Spits coming after. The Spindleweb Hatchling is a low-danger mob that only has Acidic Demise as its ability, where, upon being killed, they will drop acidic puddles on the floor. This is a tank responsibility, as you want to make sure you are not dropping these puddles in the path of the dungeon, allowing your DPS and healer to move around them without having to walk through. The Creeping Spindleweb is not much different from the Hatchlings, but is a medium danger mob because of Poison Spray. Poison Spray applies a dot to several allies, which is a simple poison dispel, but is rot damage nonetheless and needs to be covered by some spot healing. The Scouting Trapper is a low danger mob that throws freezing traps around the room. These are indicated by tall blue pillars and will stun you if you touch them, so be aware as you're moving around. The Apex Lynx is a high-danger mob which casts Ferocious Pounce. This will put circles on several allies and will require you to loosely spread before the lynx jumps to each ally, doing decent damage. Healers, be aware of this and make sure it doesn't overlap with poisons or other casts. For the tank, the lynx will cast Puncturing Bite. This applies a heavy bleed dot to them, so be aware and use your defenses accordingly. The Pesty Lashling is a low-danger mob with the ability Spore Charged. If you are fighting these mobs with the Bloated Lasher, they will become empowered and begin applying a nature damage over time effect to your tank. The Bloated Lasher is a high-danger mob, of which there is also only one in this dungeon, which will cast Fungal Bolt on repeat. This must be interrupted by DPS and tanks. Rest in peace, healer interrupts. The Bloated Lasher will also cast Spore Dispersal. This is a heal check, as it applies a nasty dot to everyone in the party, and will also awaken and empower nearby Pesty Lashlings. Be aware and be prepared to heal this, healers. Emberdawn is one of the first 2 bosses you can fight in this dungeon. Its first ability is a tank buster called Searing Beak. It does heavy initial damage and then applies a magic damage over time effect, which is not dispellable and will chunk your tank if they do not use their defenses appropriately. Emberdawn also casts Flaming Updraft. This will put a damage over time effect on 2 different players, which shortly after will explode and leave behind a puddle. You want to bring these to the edges of the room. You also want to make sure that you leave these puddles instantly and do not greed any casts, because not only do the puddles do very high damage, they also have the center of the puddle explode shortly after being dropped into a geyser of flame that will instantly kill you. Do not greed, leave them immediately. Occasionally, Emberdawn will cast Burning Gale, which acts as a sort of intermission. The boss will slowly spin in a counterclockwise direction, emitting fiery cones of death after a period of time. This is predictable, and, knowing the direction, you can wait for a cone to go by, and then go in the opposite direction, clockwise, so you do not have to move often. During this intermission, you are also being forced around the room by the different winds, and there are fire tornadoes of death that have spawned and will almost certainly kill you if you let them touch you. Be aware, dodge, and bring that Dragonhawk down. The Fervent Apothecary is a medium danger mob that casts File Toss. This will throw a targeted circle underneath someone's feet, and if they don't get out in time, will do severe damage and also leaves behind a puddle. Be aware, and tanks, make sure you move these around when there is no space left. The Windrunner Soldier is a low danger mob that only casts Precise Cut. This applies a bleed damage over time effect to your tank and a 10% heal reduction. As far as I'm aware, this does not stack, so this mob is of no significant danger. The Zealous Reaver is possibly the lowest danger mob in this entire dungeon, as it only casts Fierce Slash, which is a slight extra damage onto the tank. However, compared to its normal auto attacks, it is effectively negligible. The Ardent Cutthroat is a medium danger mob which has the ability Poison Blades. If this ability goes off, it will begin to apply a nature damage over time effect on all damage that it deals. So make sure you interrupt or CC this, and if it gets off and people begin getting that nature damage over time, you can dispel it with a Poison Dispel. The Ardent Cutthroat also casts Shadow Rive, where it will teleport to a random ally and do a small instance of damage. However, if this is combined with the Poison Blades buff, if they successfully get the cast off, that ally will also have that Poison Dot and can take some nasty damage. Be aware, healers, and be ready to dispel if possible. The Devoted Woebringer is a high danger mob that casts Shadow Bolt. They cannot be CC'd, so they must be interrupted. It also casts Pulsing Shriek, where periodically it will apply a large shield to itself and begin pulsing AoE damage. Be aware, healers, as this is a light heal check. DPS need to focus the shield down in order to interrupt the Pulsing Shriek and stop this damage event. Next comes the Flesh Boy, or more formally, Flesh Behemoth. This is a high danger mob, of which there is only one in this dungeon. You'll notice that trend. And it casts Brutal Chop. This is quite simply, a tank buster, so make sure you use your defensives accordingly. It will also cast Fetid Spew, where it will target random allies with a pulsing dot that requires a loose spread. Be aware, and healers, be ready to heal up those affected by it. The Derelict Duo is one of the hardest bosses in this dungeon, and is also a pair of bosses, where you'll be fighting Callus and Latch. Callus will repeatedly cast Shadow Bolt, which should be interrupted on cooldown. Callus will also cast Curse of Darkness, where two allies will be afflicted with a curse that shortly after spawns a ghost that will chase you slowly. If that ghost hits you, it hits like a truck, so you need to kite these ghosts around and make sure they do not get to melee you. However, by using a Curse Dispel, you can reduce the amount of ghosts you have to deal with. If you have two Curse Dispels, you effectively never have to deal with this mechanic. Latch, on the other hand, will cast Bone Hack, which is a tank buster bleed dot, so tanks use their defenses accordingly. Latch also casts Splattering Spew, which puts a circle on everyone that shortly after drops a puddle of goop. If you were already standing in a puddle of goop, or are overlapped with another ally, it will instantly kill you and your ally due to the 100% damage taken increase that is built into the fight. So make sure you are in a clear area, being smart with where you're putting these puddles down, and leave the puddle immediately after, as it does very high damage. Do not greed in this dungeon. After the puddles are placed, all allies are given the heavy damage over time effect, so healers, be aware, this is the hardest part of the fight to heal. and it happens repeatedly, so you've got this. Occasionally, both bosses will enter a sort of intermission, where Callus teleports randomly in the room and begins casting Debilitating Shriek, which is ramping AoE damage. The only way to stop this is using Latch's Heaving Yank, which functions much like Necrotic Wake on the second last boss. One player will be targeted by Latch and shortly after will be hooked towards him. As such, you want to make sure Callus is the only person between that target and Latch, so Latch will hook Callus and end her Debilitating Shriek. The Swiftshot Archer is a medium danger mob which casts Arrow Rain. This is Happy Feet, simply dodge the swirlies. And the Swiftshot Archer will do a classic Shoot ability, where it will do random damage to each of your allies and require some spot healing. The Phalanx Breaker is a medium danger mob that casts the ability Break Ranks, where it will pick a random target and shortly after will charge at them. There is a line indicator for this, so do not get hit. And if you want to be efficient, you should make sure you bait this charge into a wall so he doesn't travel halfway across the dungeon. The Phalanx Breaker will also cast Interrupting Screech, which is a large AoE burst and will interrupt any casting for 4 seconds. So watch your casts if you're a ranged DPS and do not get interrupted by this, and healers, prepare to top everyone up. The Haunting Grunt is a danger lower than low, because all it does is Intercepting Charge, where it will charge to your tank and do a little bit of damage. You effectively can forget this mob exists. The Lingering Marauder is also a low danger mob, and only casts Gore Whirl, which is a small channeled Bladestorm-like AoE that you can step out of, and it doesn't move while casting this. So as long as while you were kiting this, it doesn't block the pathway, you can effectively ignore this mob as well. Melee, just be careful you're not standing in it. The Loyal Warg is a low danger mob that casts Shred Flesh. This is a simple bleed dot onto your tank and a heal absorb, so be aware not to pull too many. However, given the low amount of defenses the tank needs in this area, you can also use defensives to get through this. The Phantasmal Mystic is a high danger mob in this area that casts Chain Lightning. Simply interrupt this. Additionally, it will cast Ephemeral Bloodlust, which will apply a, I believe, 35% haste buff to all nearby allies. So stacking 2 of these mystics can lead to a wipe very quickly. Finally, the Phantasmal Mystic will cast Flame Nova, which is not preventable and does an AoE burst of damage, so healers make sure people are topped up before this and prepare to heal them up after. The final mob in this dungeon is the Spectral Axe Thrower, which is a medium danger mob that only casts, believe it or not, Throw Axe. This applies a bleed dot to a random ally, and it hits quite hard, so healers be aware to spot heal whoever has been affected by this. Commander Kroluk is the second last boss in this dungeon, and he will cast Reckless Leap. He will target 2 allies with a large circle that you must spread out and make sure you are not overlapping with anyone. After jumping to each ally, sequentially, he will leave them with a nasty damage over time effect, so be aware healers. After each jump as well, he will also shoot a smattering of swirlies across the room, so make sure you dodge those and do not get hit. Kroluk will also use Rampage, which is a simple tank buster, so tanks, make sure you use your defenses accordingly. Occasionally, Kroluk will cast Intimidating Shout, which will put a small circle on everyone in the party. After he has finished the cast, if you are alone and not overlapping with anyone, you will be feared. So you need to make sure you're stacking with at least one person. Can be in a stack of 2 and 3, or everyone on top of each other, it doesn't really matter, just do not be alone. However, it is dispellable if you do get feared, so healers, be mindful of that. Finally, Commander Kroluk will occasionally cast Rallying Bellow, which acts as the intermission to this fight. He will start with a massive AoE, so you need to make sure everyone is topped up and healed up quickly afterwards. During this phase, he has 99% damage reduction, so you do not want to be targeting the boss. He will summon a set of adds that you have seen already in this final wing, and you need to focus, group up, and kill down these adds as quickly as possible. Finally, in this entire time, Commander Kroluk will be targeting you one by one with Bladestorm. Simply kite it away so you are not cleaving through your tank and melee, and once all the adds are done, he returns to his normal phase where he will continue casting Reckless Leap and Intimidating Shout. The final boss in this dungeon is the Restless Heart, which will use Arrow Rain. This ability sends out swirlies across the room that are shortly after replaced by turbulent arrows that are lodged in the ground. A turbulent arrow will knock you up when you touch it, and shortly after explode into a lightning puddle that remains on the floor, taking up a lot of space in the room. The boss will cast Squall Leap occasionally, which applies a stacking permanent dot to everyone in the party, and the only way to remove this, and cleanse all of your stacks, is by touching a turbulent arrow. However, you don't want to use up all of your turbulent arrows, as the boss will cast Bullseye Wind Blast. This is where they target the ground with a massive explosion on the opposing side of the room. Afterwards, it will spawn a growing insta-kill circle that you do not want to touch. And, much like the Rick Reverb fight, you need to go over it. The way to do this is by using the turbulent arrows, so everyone has to have their own turbulent arrow they walk into, get knocked up, and over this growing insta-kill circle. The boss will also cast Bolt Gale, where a random ally will be targeted by a tracking cone, so if you're targeted by this, make sure you keep away from all of your allies. This will do constant damage to you and slowly push you away, so healers, be aware that they're going to need some extra help. Finally, the boss will cast Tempest Slash, which is a tank buster that knocks back the tank and applies a 40% damage amp. After Tempest Slash, everyone in the room is targeted by an additional ability that puts a circle on them. This circle will explode shortly after and cleanse any nearby puddles left behind by used up turbulent arrows. So after the tank buster, make sure you are nearby a puddle on the ground, and you will cleanse this after your debuff explodes. For recommended defenses in the Promenade, keep an eye out for the Restless Steward's Soul Torment or Spirit Bolt. An overlap of Spirit Bolt with the Soul Torment debuff will most certainly kill you on a higher key level. Additionally, help your healer out whenever the Spellguard Magus is casting Arcane Salvo, especially if there are two of them in the pool, as that is typically where the hero pool is. For Vareesa's Repose, make sure you use a defensive on the Fire Spit from the Territorial Dragonhawk. If you are not prepared for this, it will kill you very quickly. Whenever you are fighting the Bloated Lasher, watch out for Spore Dispersal, as that is a nasty damage overtime effect, so help your healer out. And if you have extra defenses, use it on the Apex Lynx's Ferocious Pounce. It has been tuned a lot, so it doesn't do too much damage nowadays, but it still helps your healer. On the Emberdawn fight, use your defenses on Burning Gale and Flaming Updraft. During the intermission, you will take a lot of pulsing fire damage, so you want to help your healer out, and when you're dropping your puddle, you will take most of your health and damage, as that mechanic is severely overtuned. For Sylvanus Quarters, keep an eye out for the Flesh Behemoth's Fetid Spew, as that does pulsing damage and can hit pretty hard. And additionally, use a defensive on the Devoted Woebringer when she is casting Pulsing Shriek, until she has been interrupted, all to help your healer. For the Derelict Duo fight, you absolutely want to use a defensive on Debilitating Shriek in order to mitigate the pulsing damage taken in that fight, especially when it overlaps with the Splattering Spew debuff, which also hits very hard. Make sure you're using your defensives appropriately and rotating them in this fight. For the Windrunner Vault, you only need to use a defensive on the Interrupting Screech from the Phalanx Breaker and the Flame Nova from the Phantasmal Mystic. Everything else can be covered by spot healing. For the Commander Kroluk fight, you should use a defensive if you're targeted by Reckless Leap, as that debuff is very nasty, and will sometimes overlap with Rallying Bellow. So you want to make sure you're also using a defensive on every Rallying Bellow, just in case you also have the Reckless Leap debuff, which, if undefended, will certainly kill you. Finally, for the Restless Heart, use your defenses as you're targeted by Bolt Gale, or during the Bullseye Wind Blast, as you will typically have 2 stacks of the Squall Leap debuff there if you do not cleanse it early. As a suggested tip, if you are a mage or an evoker, cleanse your debuff early and then use a Blink or Chrono Warden hover to get over the growing wall, so you can help your healer out during that phase. Thank you for watching The Simple As That for Windrunner Spire. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And if you want to watch me live playing WoW or other games, you can catch me at Carterius FM over on Twitch, where I'd appreciate a follow. Thank you very much, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.